Howdy, y'all. Let's talk about this Southern horror comedy starring Robert Englund. Uh, and I'm not going to talk like that this whole time. Let's talk about 2001 Maniacs. This has Robert Englund. This is directed and written by Tim Sullivan, who did one of those Chillerama segments that I fucking hated. Phew, I haven't seen much from this guy, but everything else I've seen besides this, I have not liked from him. He played the killer in the Bloody Bible Camp movie, and he was the worst part of that movie because I remember him like laughing the whole time, and it just got on my nerves. But yeah, this is the best thing from Tim Sullivan, in my opinion, that I've seen. So yeah, 2001 Maniacs. This is a remake or a sequel to the movie back in like the 60s from Herschel Gordon Lewis, and I've never seen it. But I think this is like a remake, right? But it's called 2001 Maniacs. That movie was called 2000 Maniacs. So I'm not sure why it's called 2001. It makes it sound like it's a sequel, but it's a remake, right? And this is produced by Eli Roth, who has a cameo in the movie, and there's a lot of cameos from people in this movie. I'll point them out as we go along. And so, yeah, this movie tells a story about a group of college kids on spring break, and they go on a detour, and they end up at this small town that's doing a civil war or a reenactment, and they insist that they stay for their festival. So they stay there, and one by one, they're getting butchered. This was a Patron request from Justin Smith, and thank you for the request, and thank you for the donation. You are awesome. Before we go into my likes, let's talk about my dislikes for this movie. I don't like that there's a random dream sequence in the movie. It just feels unnecessary. I don't like fake outs. All right, just take that stuff out. So you take that out, and this movie will be better for it. And I didn't look what the budget was, but I'm guessing it was kind of low because this movie just looks kind of cheap. Like the lighting, the cinematography, some of the camera work, it doesn't look that good. It looks very amateurish, and it kind of hurts the film a little bit. I just wish it had a better look to the movie, aesthetically, and some of the acting is bad, but with a movie like this, you're not necessarily needing Oscar performances. I know some people don't care about acting when they're watching a horror comedy, but in case you do care about that, I'm letting you know there are some bad actors, and one of the worst actors in this movie, thankfully, gets killed first, so you don't have to deal with that person very long. And I just don't. I wish that there was a better reason why they stayed, because they're on their way to like Daytona Beach, like a spring break party where there's gonna be tons of people their age and it's gonna be a much cooler, more fun environment, and they stay here just because they insist. It's not like their car broke down, I don't think. It's just like they took a detour and then they just end up there and they're like, oh, we're lost. It's like, just go back where you came and take a different road. Like, why are they staying? They're just like, oh, we're gonna have a barbecue. It's like, yeah, but there's gonna be hot babes, and I mean, there's hot babes here too. We see later on. I mean, but still, like Daytona is a much better option. And then, like, why did the biker guy and his girlfriend stay there? And they just pull up. It's not like their motorcycle broke. It's like, why are they staying here? This place isn't that appealing. The women are beautiful, some of them, but that's not a good enough reason to stay. So I just feel like there should have been a better explanation for why they stuck around. They should have done the traditional, oh, my car broke down, so now I gotta stick around here for a while. And I also think that maybe they should have focused on the main guy and the love interest a little bit more. Maybe build those characters a little bit more. I know this is a movie that's, illogical and it's about the kills and it's about just being goofy and silly. I get it. So it's not about character development, but I just feel like since these are like the main two characters by the end of the movie, they should have focused on them a little bit more together in the middle. Just give us a little bit more between them. Now, my positives for this movie, I really like Robert Englund in this movie. He gives a really fun, just hammy, obviously fake Southern accent performance. I love his Southern accent, just his line delivery, the dialogue, and like there's one moment where he says, I had a lot of confidence in a fart, and then I ended up shitting all over myself, something like that. There's some really funny dialogue in this movie. It's very juvenile. There's a lot of perverted, vulgar humor in the movie, a lot of sexual jokes, a lot of like just very sexual stuff in the movie. It's very over the top in moments, and there's plenty of beautiful ladies in this movie that take their tops off. There's lots of nudity in this movie, and there's gory ass kills, and they're very creative. People getting ripped limb by limb, lots of severed heads, and just very mean kills. There's the acid kill. There's a guy getting crushed, a woman getting crushed too. So there's a lot of crushing going on, and it's very bloody and it's graphic. So it succeeds in that department. The gory kills, like the effects there, looked pretty good. There's not really a whole lot of CGI involved. Maybe in like one shot, I think, with like the acid one, but it's not that bad. So it's mainly practical effects, and that's what it should be when you're doing a slasher, especially, or you're doing like a gore fest, a splat stick, horror movie, like this. It should always be practical effects, and for the most part, I think it is in this movie, and it looks pretty good. Like the severed heads looked pretty real, in some shots, and some looked faker than others, but they looked pretty damn good, especially if it for a low budget like this. I also kind of like the opening credits, just having all like the stock footage of like the Civil War. It just set the mood for the movie, and it has a really fast pace. It just keeps going, and as soon as they get there, things are just odd from the beginning. Just very quirky characters there, and there's a lot of cameos. There's one by Kane Hodder, Scott Spiegel, just so many people in this movie. You got Lin Shaye in this movie also. She was in Nightmare on Elm Street with Robert Englund, so it's like a little reunion between them. I'm not sure what else they might have done together between. And I also kind of like the little twist they threw in at the end about, the town and what's going on. And I like the reason why they're doing what they're doing. And so, final thoughts, I really enjoyed it. It's just got a lot of funny humor in it. I cracked up at Robert Englund's performance and some of the dialogue and just the quirky characters that live in this small town, and it's just got great kills, beautiful babes. It's not for everyone though. If the humor's not for you, if you don't like bad acting, or you don't like un-PC humor, this movie's not PC at all. It's got a good pace and it's very rewatchable. So when it comes to 2001 Maniacs, if this sounds like your kind of movie, I'd recommend going out and buying it. Alright, spoiler discussion. So in the opening, we see Peter Stormare, the actor from a lot of movies, and I love him, and they're messing with the slideshow, and this has been done in a lot of movies. It was done in Killer Party, 1986, and the whole audience is like cracking up at every single photo, even though they're not even that funny. It was just a bit of an overreaction from the audience, and we see another cameo from Eli Roth, who's throwing a dead armadillo at windows of cars driving by trying to get a ride, and he's playing the same character that he plays in Cabin Fever, which came out a couple of years before this. And so that's cool to think about. Like, this movie takes place in the same universe as Cabin Fever. That redneck at the gas station spitting tobacco, he has like the best set of teeth that I've seen on any redneck from the South. You would think that he would have the nastiest teeth that you would normally see in a movie like this, where they just don't have good hygiene. They look nasty, but when he smiles, his teeth are like wider and straighter than mine. Then we get a Scott Spiegel cameo. He's the guy on the guitar. The South's gonna rise again. And, the black guy and his Asian girlfriend pull up, and we get a bunch of black and Asian jokes throughout the rest of the movie. And he bumps into another black guy who lives at this town who's offering him watermelon. And then by the end of the movie, the black guy gets killed by a machine, a device that's used for cotton. And he's being killed on top of cotton. It's not PC at all. Another cameo here is the guy who would, what's his name? Adam Robentel, the guy who would direct like Escape Room and like, I think one of the Paranormal Activity movies. He would go on to be a horror director, and he's the guy fucking goats in this movie. Come here, Jezebel! Then the character Pussycat, that's her name. Her name's Cat, short for Pussy Cat, and she gets ripped limb from limb. Like all her arms and legs are tied to, not even tied, like they're tied to her, but then the other people are holding onto the rope, and they ride off on their horses in 4 different directions, and one by one her arms and legs are getting ripped off so easily. it's impossible, especially because like they're holding on to the rope, so it's like they would have to like when they're riding away, they would have to hold on very tight, and it would like give them like rope burn in their hands too. Like they would have to hold like there's no way. So the main guy we're following, he picks up this girl with the worst pickup line ever and hands her flowers and immediately wins her heart. And like she's gonna be like the damsel in distress at the end. He's gotta save her, and it's like they should have built these characters up more. And like really, that pickup line would never work. I forget what was it like. Have you heard of like 60-second romance? And she's like, no. And he's like, you got a minute? And then he kisses her. Terrible, absolutely terrible. So Nelson, the guy who can't get a date, everybody around him's getting laid except for him. So he's in his room fucking his pillow. Uh, I've never done that, and I don't see how that would work. How would you be able to get off fucking a pillow? How does that work? Like, I don't, whatever. But so the girl gets in there, and then she sticks a tube down his throat and tells him to suck on it. And I guess he thinks just beer is going to come out of it, but he's sucking on acid, and his whole stomach and throat start melting away, melts through the bed, melts through the floor. He's on the second floor, so I wonder if it went through and could have hit somebody below. But yeah, that was a pretty brutal death, and there's like some CGI there, I think, especially like when you get like the under the bed shot. It looked kind of weird. And then we get these two giggling girls who are cousins making out with each other, and they're cock teases. They keep like turning men on, but they don't want them to have sex with them, and they don't want them to touch themselves either. So it's like you just have to watch. But if you try touching us, we're going to push you away. If you try touching yourself, we're going to ridicule you and judge you, even though we're cousins making out with each other. And then the next kill, it's the Asian girl who gets like the big ass bell that lands on her and crushes her. So I guess she was not saved by the bell. And then the other guy, the bisexual guy, I guess, because he was like making out with the chick earlier, but then he's fucking the one dude later on. So I guess he's like bisexual. And he gets skewered in his ass. He gets a big old spear through his ass, out his mouth. And Lin Shaye starts like licking the blood off the tip of the spear. Ugh, it's disgusting. And then we get another cameo here from the director. He's the guy, like the coffin salesman, like nailing coffins, and the black guy, I didn't write his name down, so he's just the black guy. The black guy, he sees this little girl crushing a rat, foreshadowing his demise later on when he gets crushed. And he was very brave. He didn't scream. He wasn't like crying, begging for mercy. He was just like, kiss my black ass. And then he got crushed, and then his eyeballs pop out, very cartoony. Like, that would never happen. Just because your chest is getting crushed doesn't mean it's going to like pop your eyes out. That doesn't make sense. And then the one guy, he gets this very nasty, deadly blowjob from the one girl with the gap in her teeth. But it's not really it looks like they just took permanent marker to her teeth. But she puts in like this mouth of like nails and like I don't know what it was. It looked like the poster for The Dentist Part 2. And she just bites on his dick. That's kind of, that kill wasn't all that great. It's very silly. That could have been done better. And speaking of permanent marker, they have like all these jars and they label them. Like they have like tape on them and they like write like the years. Like these are body parts from the Jubilee from this year and this year. It looked like it was written in permanent marker. And these are people from like the late 1800s or 1864 or some shit. Would they have permanent markers around? Did they steal permanent markers from some of their victims? Maybe. I don't know. I mean, that's just a little nitpick. But, it's supposed to be people who only stick to the rules of their era, what they have, the resources they had back then, but they have permanent marker that they're using to write on those jars. And then we get kind of like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre dinner table scene. The girl's tied up at the end of the dinner table, and all her friends' heads are on the table. And the one guy, I guess they're gonna let this one guy maybe live if he killed her. They're like, you gotta kill her, and we'll let you live, just because that you said that you're from the South originally. I mean, he doesn't even have a Southern accent, so it's like, if all of them just lied and said, yeah, I'm from the South, would they just let them all live? I mean, maybe. I don't know. We don't get to see if they were telling the truth or not. Maybe they would have let this guy live if he killed her, but he doesn't. And then they throw in like electric guitar music in this scene. I just thought that was a bad choice. They should have stuck with more like, acoustic guitar, like music from that era. They should have been more old sounding music. Then we get another cameo from King Hodder. He's just in the background. Yeah, he's holding the guy for a couple of seconds, and then he's no longer in the movie. He doesn't do anything. He should have done more. And Robert Englund, his eye patch gets removed, and a bunch of maggots start pouring out. It's like CGI. Like, I think they linger on that shot way too long. Like 1 second would have been enough with the maggots coming out. So then they go and they get the cops, and the cops want to drive them back to the place, and they do. And I would have been like, fuck no. Like, I told you what happened. If you don't believe me, fine, but I'm just going to go home. I wouldn't drive back with just the one cop risking my life. Like, that just seems like a dumb decision. And then we find out the twist that they're all ghosts. That would explain how this guy with 1,000 maggots in his eyeball has why he has all those maggots in him, and why throughout the movie everybody seems to slowly be kind of deteriorating. I mean, yeah, I guess they kind of let you know early on. There's like one shot of the girl's face, like all of a sudden, like these black veins start showing up on her face, and then Lin Shaye, she starts to look a little bit more pale. Robert Englund, his eye wound, like he has like a scar that starts to appear more and more as the movie goes on. So yeah, they kind of let you know early on, but the way it played out at the end, it was more like a twist. Like it was supposed to be shocking, especially to the characters, because they thought these were real people, but they were ghosts, and apparently they got killed by Yankees, back in the day, so they want revenge. So is it like they come back every year for 2 days, and they're like they want to get 2001 people? Because it sounded like they were saying they wanted to meet like a number. They were trying to like reach a goal. Like, you killed 2001 of us, so not until we kill 2001 of you are we going to stop doing this. So maybe once they reach 2001 victims, they'll stop coming back every year. And then we get the barbed wire decapitation scene. It's very reminiscent of like Wrong Turn 4, except this is way before that, but again, very impossible. I mean, the barbed wire would just knock you off of the fucking bike. You would just fall on your ass. It might cut you at first, but you would have to go like super fast. I don't know how fast, but I'm pretty damn fast. And then like, it doesn't make sense. Like, it went through his neck and then through her mouth. It's like in Ghost Ship, where it just went all the way through everyone's midsection, but it got the guy in his face. Like, they weren't lined up like that. It was off. It didn't make sense. And then like he like uses the slingshot and takes off the top half of her head. Which, if they were dead, they would have just fell over. They actually like put the bike in park, and then he's putting his foot down, trying to balance himself on the bike still. Like, is he still alive? Like, his head falls off, and he's still on the bike holding on. It's like his body would have loosened up, and they just would have fell off. They wouldn't just keep sitting on the bike still, but then he just takes their heads, and then he disappears. How did he come back? They're breaking the rules here, man. They only come back for 2 days. They're only back for the festival every year. So once the festival is over, they're back in their graves. The whole city at this point in the movie has disappeared. All those buildings, they're gone. It's just a big graveyard. So he shouldn't be allowed to come back to kill them off. So they're breaking the rules. I don't like that. And then he like winks at the camera. I didn't care for that either. I mean, the whole movie's silly, but that was just a little too much. Like, he like looks right at the camera. And he's like, "Damn Yankee folks," something like that. So, but yeah, that's the end of the movie. A very silly, very gory movie. What are your thoughts on this movie? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you like what you've seen here, you can hit this like button and become a subscriber today just by clicking on my cartoon face in about 5 seconds. And remember, it's just an opinion. You don't need to get butthurt about it.